Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's story. In this episode, James decides it's finally time to give Diep something she never expected, a day that belongs entirely to her. After months of juggling their new company, raising little Nye, and facing tension with Diep's father, their lives have been full of stress and responsibility. But today, James keeps a secret hidden behind a quiet smile and brings Diep somewhere that completely takes her breath away, a bridal boutique. For the first time in her life, Diep tries on beautiful wedding gowns. Stay until the end, because this moment becomes the turning point that brings their dreams one step closer to reality. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us. The night before everything happens, James can barely hide the excitement tightening in his voice. He sits beside Diep on the small wooden bench outside her room, their shoulders touching lightly, like two kids secretly plotting something magical. "Diep," he starts, pretending to be casual. "Are you busy tomorrow?" She glances at him suspiciously. "Tomorrow? Not really. Why?" James tries not to grin. "Good, because tomorrow I'm giving you the whole day." Diep raises an eyebrow. "The whole day? For what?" "That..." James leans back, arms crossed, pretending to think. "Is a secret." Her eyes widen. "A secret? You're making me curious on purpose." "Well," he tilts his head, teasing, "if I tell you, you might not be happy." Diep nudges him with her shoulder. "Why would I be unhappy? Just say it." "No," he insists, shaking his head. "Trust me. Tomorrow will be more special than any trip we've ever taken." She laughs softly, but her curiosity keeps climbing. "You really know how to play with my mind." Then James's tone shifts, just slightly. He glances down at their intertwined fingers. "By the way, about us, do your parents know?" Diep sighs gently. "Mom knows, and she's happy. But let's not talk about Dad, not tonight." James nods. "It's okay. And honestly, I'm not working with your father anymore. You know that, right?" "I know," she says. "You only help him when he needs something." James smiles faintly. "We have our own company now, our own future." She squeezes his hand, the gesture soft but full of meaning. "Yes, our future." The moment lingers, quiet, warm, a little fragile. Then Diep stands. "Come on, I boiled water already. Go shower. We need to sleep early if tomorrow is such a big mystery." "Fine," he laughs, "but you'll thank me tomorrow." Before going to bed, both of them feel the same mix of emotions: excitement, nervousness, a small flutter of fear about the future, and that tiny worry about her father lingering in the background. But above all, they feel hope. Morning arrives, with soft sunlight spilling through the curtains. Diep ties her hair into a quick ponytail as she walks into the kitchen to prepare breakfast for Nye. James watches from the door, smiling at the everyday beauty of it all. "Remember," she says, while putting rice into a small container, "I still have to take Nye to school first." James nods. "Of course. I'll wait in the car." Nye appears, rubbing her eyes, still sleepy. Diep bends down to help her put on her shoes. "She's been doing pretty well at school lately," James says proudly. Diep smiles. "Yeah, her teacher praises her a lot, says she learns quickly." Together, after dropping Nye off, they finally begin their mysterious trip. Diep keeps trying to guess, are we going to the farm to meet someone, to look at land. But every time, James just grins and says, "Nope." Eventually, they stop in front of a large glass storefront with soft white curtains and elegant golden lettering. Diep freezes. "James," she whispers, staring at the sign. "This is—" "Yes," he finishes for her. "A wedding dress shop." Before she can react, a kind-looking attendant steps out. "Hello. Please come in. You two must be here for the fitting?" Diep's cheeks go warm instantly. We're here to try on the dress?" James turns to the attendant. "It's 8 o'clock, right? My friend is doing the makeup?" "Yes." The attendant nods. "She's waiting inside. Please come in." Diep turns slowly, eyes narrowing at James. "Why didn't you tell me?" He leans in, whispering in her ear, "Because it's a secret. And today, we're just trying things on. Not the real thing yet." She tries to look annoyed, but her smile keeps breaking through. "You're unbelievable." Inside, the shop feels like a dream. White curtains, soft lights, sparkling gowns. A makeup artist waves. "Come, daughter-in-law, sit down. I'll do your makeup." Diep blushes at the phrase daughter-in-law, but she sits anyway. James watches her with a quiet smile, amazed at how naturally she fits into this world. "James," Diep says, while her eyes close for an eyeliner stroke. "Seriously, what is going on?" He shrugs. "I wanted to take you somewhere special, somewhere we haven't been. Something for us." She tries not to move as the artist laughs. "He planned this very carefully, you know." James clears his throat. Okay, enough teasing. Can we go upstairs now?" The attendant nods. "Of course. She can try the dresses on the second floor. You can both pick something." Upstairs, the room opens into a bright space with mirrors covering every wall. Rows of wedding dresses line the racks. Lace, tulle, pearls, satin. Diep runs her fingers across one gown, whispering, "They're all so beautiful." The attendant hands her a dress. "Try this one. I think it will suit you." She disappears behind the curtain. James waits, tapping his foot, excited but nervous. What if she doesn't like it? What if this surprise is too much? Then the curtain slides open. Diep steps out in a flowing white gown, delicate lace trailing down her arms, the skirt shimmering under the lights. Her hair is softly curled from the makeup session, her cheeks blush naturally. James forgets how to breathe. Do you think this outfit looks good on me?" she asks shyly. He steps closer, eyes full of awe. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful. This dress, it really suits you." The attendant claps softly. "You look like a real bride." Diep laughs nervously. "This outfit really suits me. I can't believe it. And you," she glances at James, "you look amazing too." "I thought you were taking me somewhere random," she continues, "but you actually surprised me." James nods slowly. "I wanted to." She takes a deep breath. "Thank you for today, for bringing me to try on a wedding dress. This is my first time wearing something this beautiful. Thank you, honey." Her voice cracks just a little. James reaches for her hands. "Diep, today's secret was simply that I wanted to see you in a wedding dress. I wanted us to have this moment, even if we're not doing it for real just yet." Her eyes soften. "We'll wait a little longer," he says gently. "When our company is stable, when everything is in place, we'll have the real wedding. Together." Okay? She nods, tears shimmering but controlled. Okay. They stand there in the middle of the mirror-filled room, Diep, glowing in white, James holding her hands. Two people, not yet at the aisle, but already walking the same future. The mirrors still reflect Diep in her gown as she wipes the corners of her eyes, trying not to smudge the makeup. The attendant hands her a small tissue. Diep laughs softly, embarrassed. I didn't expect to cry this early in the morning. James squeezes her hand gently. It's allowed. Today is your day. She glances at him through the mirror, her smile warm and full of disbelief. You really planned all this just to see me try on a wedding dress? James nods, leaning one shoulder against the wall. I wanted you to feel something different, something beautiful. We've spent so much time working, worrying, taking care of Nye. I wanted one day to belong only to us. A little silence settles between them, soft, emotional, yet comforting. The attendant brightens. Now, would you like to try a different style too? Something with a longer train, perhaps? Diep's eyes sparkle. Can I? Of course, James says immediately. Try whatever you like. The attendant pulls out a second gown, this one shimmering with tiny beadwork, the skirt flowing like mist. Diep disappears behind the curtain again, her voice floating out softly as she changes. James, don't peek. I'm not. He laughs. I'm a gentleman. Sometimes, she teases. A moment later, the curtain slides open again. James actually forgets how to speak for a full 2 seconds. This dress hugs her waist more elegantly, the train stretching behind her like a river of stars. Diep twirls once, the skirt fanning beautifully. What do you think? James steps closer, slower this time, not joking, not teasing, just completely mesmerized. Diep, you look like the kind of bride people can't forget. She laughs bashfully. Stop exaggerating. I'm not, he says quietly. You really do. The attendant smiles knowingly. Shall we try a veil as well? Before Diep can answer, she gently places a long veil over Diep's hair. The moment Diep looks at herself in the mirror, her breath catches. The veil transforms her reflection. She no longer looks like a woman merely trying on dresses. She looks like a bride on her wedding morning. Diep places a hand over her chest. I didn't expect this to feel so real. James stands behind her, their eyes meeting through the mirror. One day, he says softly, that moment will be real. We'll make it real. Her eyes shimmer again. I know. The attendant lets them have their private moment, stepping aside. James approaches, gently adjusting a stray lock of hair that escaped the veil. I'm sorry we have to wait. I wish I could give you everything right now. Diep shakes her head. James, we're building our future together. These things take time. I'm not upset. I'm not disappointed. Today is already more than I ever imagined. He lets out a deep breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Thank you for understanding. Diep smiles with her reflection. I trust you. After trying a third gown, one with soft floral lace that makes her look like she stepped out of a storybook, they finally return downstairs. The makeup artist claps her hands. You look stunning. Did you two take pictures? James touches his forehead. Oh, we forgot. Diep bursts into laughter. How could we forget? We were too busy being emotional. "Come here," the makeup artist says. "Stand in front of the curtain. I'll take some for you." They stand side by side. Diep gathers the dress with one hand, while James places his palm on her waist. For the first time, Diep sees herself in a picture not as a single mother, not as someone fighting to fix her life, but as a bride, standing next to the man who stood by her through everything. When the artist hands them the phone, Diep's hand covers her mouth. "This looks unreal." James looks at the screen too, his expression softening. "I think it looks perfect." Then the artist switches them. James stands alone first, then Diep, then both again. Each picture feels like freezing a tiny piece of their future. When they finally change back into their regular clothes, Diep lingers, folding the last dress neatly, as if apologizing to it for taking it off. James watches her fondly. "You really liked them, didn't you?" Diep nods. "It felt like a dream. I never thought I'd get to wear something so beautiful." James smiles slowly. "You deserve moments like this." She looks up at him, eyes warm. "Thank you, James." "For what?" he asks. "For giving me today." They leave the shop and step into the soft, late morning sunlight. Diep slips her hand into his automatically. Cars pass by, the street buzzing with normal life, yet everything feels strangely magical around them. "So," James says, "are you hungry?" Diep laughs. "Didn't you say today was planned? Where's the second surprise?" James pretends to think hard. "Second surprise? What if there wasn't one?" She crosses her arms. "James," he cracks immediately. Okay. Yes, there's a second surprise." She squints. "Is it lunch? Are we going somewhere fancy?" "Not fancy," he replies, "but meaningful." They drive for about 20 minutes until the car stops at a small hill overlooking the city. At the top stands a quiet cafe, a place James used to visit alone on stressful days. Now he wants to share it with her. The cafe has old wooden tables, hanging vines, and a view that stretches so far it makes the world feel wide and full of possibilities. Diep looks around, stunned. "This place is beautiful." "I come here when I need clarity," James says, "when I need to remind myself what I'm fighting for." Diep turns to him. "And today, you're fighting for us?" He nods. "Always." They sit by the window, the breeze gently brushing through. James orders warm tea and a small cake. While waiting, they scroll through the photos from the shop, laughing at Diep's shocked expressions, admiring the elegance of the dresses, imagining each one in a real ceremony someday. Diep touches one picture gently. "I never thought I'd have the courage to dream like this." James takes her hand across the table. "Dream more, dream bigger, because I'll be right there with you." Her smile deepens, glowing. "Then I will." When they finish at the cafe, they slowly drive back home, neither wanting the day to end. Diep leans her head on the window, watching the city blur by. "James," she asks quietly, "when we do get married, will it be simple or big?" He glances at her, grinning. "Whatever you want." She shakes her head. "No. Whatever we want. Together." He nods. Together. By the time they arrive at her house, the sun is dipping lower. Diep steps out of the car, then looks back at him with a gentle expression. Something soft, full of gratitude. full of love. "Today is one of the happiest days of my life," she says quietly. James smiles, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "Then let's make many more days like this." She nods, her voice barely above a whisper. "We will." And as James drives away, Diep stands in front of her home, still feeling the weightless swirl of the dress around her, still hearing James's words, still believing deep in her heart that their real wedding day will come.